This is CNN.
Welcome to this final hour of CNN Sunday Morning. I'm Bob Kane, and today for Miles O'Brien.
Good morning to you all. I'm Joey Chen.
Friendship can transcend all kinds of boundaries.
Just look at us. And two men in Washington area are showing that even an African-American man and a member of the Ku Klux Klan can find common ground. CNN's Carl Rochelle reports.
Daryl Davis plays a hot piano. It's part of the show, and it makes him stand out. He also stands out here. Davis is one of the few African Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
It's been a tough day for the Klan. Their Maryland rally found many local residents rejecting the message of white separatism. After it's over, Daryl Davis hangs around backstage with his friend, Klan wizard Roger Kelly. It's not unusual for blacks and whites to be friends, but it is unusual to find a black man and a Klan leader chatting pleasantly over an orange soda after a Klan rally. The relationship started over a book Davis was writing. His secretary set up an interview with Roger Kelly, but didn't tell him Davis was black. They talked and talked some more. Davis learning about the Klan, Kelly learning about Davis.
We get to know one another and we do different things, It hasn't changed my views about the Klan, because my views on the Klan's been pretty much cemented in my mind for years.
Kelly and his Klan friends go to hear Davis and his band. And Davis goes to their rallies.
I sat on the front row and listened to each Klansman speak. Some things I agreed with, other things I did not agree with.
Davis thinks that his presence promotes badly needed understanding.
Hate stems, I believe, from fear of the unknown, and I think this is all across the board, regardless of whether it's a Klansman or anything else.
But he has no illusions about the Klan. If he did, his friend would be quick to disabuse them.
And I believe in separation of the races. I believe that's in the best interest of all races.
Does he really? Or has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
I will follow that man to hell and back, because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Strange. Good adjective, strange.
Certainly that.
Up in the morning and out to school. Golden rule. American history and practical math. You study them hard, hoping to pass. Working your fingers right down to the bone. And the guy behind you won't leave you alone. Ring, ring goes the bell. The cook and the lunchroom's ready to sell. You're lucky if you can find a seat. Fortunate if you had time to eat. Back in the classroom, open your books. The teacher don't know how mean she looks. As soon as 3 o'clock rolls around, you lay your burden down. Close up your books, get out of your seat. Down the hall and into the street. Up to the corner and round the bend. Right to the juke joint you go in. Drop the coin right into the slot. You gotta hear something that's really hot. With the one you love, you're making romance. All day long you've been wanting to dance. Feeling good from head to toe. Round and round and round you go. Go, go. rock and roll. Deliver me from the days of old. Long live rock and roll. The beat of the drum is loud and bold. Rock, rock, rock and roll. The feeling is there, but repeat after me. Hail, hail, rock and roll. The beat of the drums loud and bold. Long live rock and roll. The spirit is there, body and soul. Rock, rock, rock and roll. Hey!
Alrighty. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. And today I am sitting here with, honestly, a real life superhero. I'm here with Daryl Davis, a musician, man who's famously known for befriending a lot of members of the Ku Klux Klan and the far right, and just showing them what it was like to be him, to be a person, to share your history, and to just break bread and to work past fear. And it really, really is an honor. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Daryl.
Well, Ty, the pleasure is mine. Thank you for even considering having me on your show. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And it's like I was telling you before, I'll share with the people too. I knew about you prior to my involvement in Antifa, and even during, even when I was fucking up, even when I was doing shit that I shouldn't have done. Sorry, pardon my language. I'm used to swearing on the channel. But even in the chaos of it all, there was still this yearning to want to go across the aisle. And a lot of that had to do with my upbringing. And, I'd known former white supremacists. I had known active white supremacists. I had seen that side of life. But having your perspective particularly to help guide me through that, and to have that curiosity still there of, okay, but what are they saying? What do they really think? What do they really believe on these things? And having those people change my mind, showing me their human side and praying and speaking with me and sharing their life stories, and realizing we're in a two-sided war right now in the United States, it seems, to where we've put up artificial walls. And they're artificial. They're created through social media. They're created through political chaos. They're created through any number of things. But it really can be as simple as just sitting in the room with somebody who you may not have sat down in a room with before, and even if that person is dangerous, trying to have the courage to work through it. And yeah, just want to thank you for that. And I guess the big thing today I want to pick your mind about is, I feel like your history is very well known. It's very well recorded. And I'll probably include some interviews in the podcast as well for people who may be unfamiliar. But a lot of what you cover is the far right and the Ku Klux Klan, which are elements that rightly deserve to have a light shine on them. But now we have groups like Antifa and the far left, which are, it's just another club of racists. From my experience, we put down the African community through our actions. We did not want to hear what people in the African community were saying against groups like Black Lives Matter. As a gay man, I'm getting told to shut the hell up by gay people for questioning what's going on in my community. And it's just become so chaotic. But particularly with the far left and extremist elements, the more time goes on, the more I realize I'm not any different than the former neo-Nazis that I had met in the past, or people who've walked away from gangs, or even people who've left cults for that matter, because it really is a cult at the end of the day. So I guess I just wanted to pick your brain on maybe some of your experiences with the far left, what your mind is on that. And I guess today just really try to tackle the fact that we are all kind of cut from the same cloth, that one racism doesn't trump another.
Right. No pun intended. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, there is a very, very fine and very thin line between far left and far right. Because I mean, extreme is extreme, and everything is works on a circle, and it's circular. So you start here and you go this way to the right, to the left, but you come around that circle, and the further you go, the closer you get to each other. There have been instances where you've had Black supremacists and white supremacists. They get along. They get along fine, ideologically, because each one believes in the purity and separation of their quote unquote race. And there is no such thing as races. There's only one race. It's the human race. There are different colors of races, but when you break it down scientifically, your DNA and my DNA is 99.9% the same. Culturally, yeah, we can be different, or our tastes or our preferences or this or the other, but DNA wise, it's only one race. It's the human race. And but these supremacy cultures, whether it's far left or far right, they get along in that regard. There have even been instances where they've had a white supremacist like Tom Metzger has met with Louis Farrakhan and things like that, because ideologically they're the same separation of the races, which is ridiculous on either side. I don't support either side in that regard.
Yeah, and that's something I know from my past experience, because I'm not going to go blabbering about people's personal business, but just from what I've seen in general, I've known many active and former white supremacists from various different towns, mostly in Texas. But that was the thing with white supremacists, was they would work with local groups like the Mexicans, like the black gangs, because there was that level of respect. You'd expect them to be shooting at each other all the time. But really what it boils down to at the end of the day for a lot of these ideologies is it's business first.
Right.
And I personally wonder, because I could be misremembering this, but I feel like I heard you say something once upon a time on a podcast or something where it was about how the kids were less receptive, essentially, than the people you'd spoken to in the past in the Ku Klux Klan. Am I correct in remembering that?
The kids were less receptive.
Yeah, didn't you try to speak out on a group of kids and try to tell them like, hey, this wasn't the way, and then there was kind of a backlash, or was that somebody else?
No, that could have been me. If you're talking about an encounter with Black Lives Matter in a documentary that I did, these young people just did not get what I was doing. About a year later, it almost ended up in violence. But about a year later, they reached out to me and wanted to get together and talk. They've been seeing me on videos or interviews, and they were beginning to understand where I was coming from. They said, we don't agree with everything, but we see where you're coming from. We want to see if we can get together and work together. So we got together, we had dinner, we talked, and we started working together. And then one of them fell off the wagon, so to speak, and reverted back to his old thing. It's like this. I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, a white supremacist. If that person were to see me out and about with a white woman, he would not like it. But he would not like the white woman. He would hate the white woman more than he hates me, because
she's a traitor.
Like exactly. She has sold out her race. She's a race traitor, et cetera, right? So he would come down on her a lot harder. It's the same thing with a Black supremacist. So, when some of them see me sitting down and talking with members of the KKK and things like that, I'm an Uncle Tom, I'm an Oreo, I'm everything but my name. I've sold out. I've been told, why are you sitting down with the enemy? We worked hard to get 10 steps forward and you put us 20 steps back. But then I hold up my robes and hoods that I've gotten and say, okay, well, this is how many robes and hoods I've collected. How many have you collected? And that kind of shuts them up. But, the point is, they say, it's not my job as a Black person to teach white people how to treat us. Yes, that is correct. It shouldn't be anybody's job to teach somebody else how to treat you. They should know how to treat you as a human being. But when you have been mistreated for 400 years, and I've been here for 400 years as the descendant of slaves from 1619, and people are still treating you the same way 400 years later, it's time you change your approach. So yes, if I have to teach somebody how to treat me, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to beat it into them. I have other ways of doing it. And my way has been effective for me, and it's helped out other people. So people eventually they see and begin to think out of the box. But when you do the same thing the same way over and over again, you get the same result. So I tried something different, and it worked.
and and just it's so weird because of the
Look,
way. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
so one of the funny things is these same people who were my detractors, they're the ones who would march up and down in front of a police station with their megaphones and yelling, hands up, don't shoot, equal justice, equal peace, so forth and so on. And I asked, are there white supremacists in that police department? Oh yeah, there are plenty of them. And so you're telling them that you want to be treated equally like anybody else. You're teaching them how to treat you. And you're calling them white supremacists, these police officers in uniforms. So what is the difference between you teaching a white supremacist in a uniform with a badge and a gun how to treat you, and me teaching somebody in a robe and a hood how to treat me? And then their mind opens up a little bit, says, oh yeah, you know what? There's not that much difference. They're doing the exact same thing I'm doing, just with a different person.
Yeah, and it's like you said, you have the robes to show the proof. I think that groups like Antifa and the far left right now is creating more white supremacists. I have a copy of the Turner Diaries here. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
I have
but
copies too.
yeah,
Earl
it's a hard
Turner.
read.
Earl Turner.
I haven't even got more than halfway through the book. It's one that I pick up and I get a couple pages in and I'm just like, all right, that's enough N words and death for the day. I'll come back to it later. But a lot of what's said in that book, if you look into 2024 and what these politicians seem to be allowing to happen, they're fearful of, black business or black people taking over the police departments or all this diversity stuff. And as the country becomes worse and worse and worse, and they're going to the diners and they're going to the bars, they're just sitting there and they're watching people watch the destruction on the news, talking about how pissed off they are, slide in the car and be like, there's a place for people like you. And people want a place right now. Antifa and the far left and these new jihadist elements and quite frankly Black Lives Matter, I feel like are driving a large percentage of the American population into the far right. And it's having the opposite effect of what you've been able to have. And I feel like you're a perfect early evolutionary example of what I think future human behavior will look like. I think that one day here in 100, 200 years, it's going to be like, why didn't everybody take the Daryl Davis approach? That seems like that would have been the common sense thing to do. But hindsight's a bitch. And,
That's the old thing, a day late, a dollar short.
Yeah.
I think you're right. We always, hindsight is always 20/20, right? But I can tell you a lot of what's going on, and I learned this, Ty, not just recently. I've been doing this for over 40 years. I learned this back in 1982 from the head of the American Nazi Party. All right, his name was Matt Kohl, Koehl. And I'll just give you a little bit of history first, so maybe some of your viewers and listeners don't know. The American Nazi Party was formed right here, about 30 minutes from where I'm sitting, in Arlington, Virginia, right on the other side of the Potomac River from Washington, D.C., by a fellow named George Lincoln Rockwell. And he was the premier American Nazi. He followed the protocols of Adolf Hitler and all that kind of stuff. He was always confronting Martin Luther King whenever King would have a march. All his stormtroopers would come and confront them and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, George Lincoln Rockwell was murdered by one of his own American Nazis. He got into an argument with this guy, and this guy shot and killed him. Well, Lincoln Rockwell's right-hand guy was a guy named Matt Kohl. He was second in charge. So when Rockwell died, Matt Kohl became the leader of the American Nazi Party. And his right-hand guy was a guy named Martin Kerr. Martin Kerr was at the Charlottesville rally. And Martin Kerr is like probably in his, I'd say, late 80s, early 90s now. Matt Kohl passed away a few years ago. But anyway, when I was in 10th grade in high school, we had a class called the POTC. This is 1974. I'm 66 now. The POTC stands for Problems of the 20th Century. We had a fantastic teacher, and he would bring in, the class was for seniors, 12th graders, but I was taking it as a sophomore. He'd bring in different controversial people, and they would express their views, and we would question them and things like that. Well, on this one day, 1974, he brought in Matt Cole, the head of the American Nazi Party. You could never do that today in a high school. But we're talking the 70s, you know, the word political correctness did not even exist. You know, and I think that was one of the worst words I've ever heard in my life. You know.
Amen to that.
Yeah. And I'm glad he brought Matt Cole to my school. Okay. So Matt Cole and Martin Kerr stood up in the front of my class espousing the views of white supremacy. Now, there was myself and another black guy in the class. I mean, there were more blacks in the school, but in this particular class, just the two of us. Everybody else was white. Matt Cole was at the front of my class, and he pointed at me and pointed at my friend Herb and said, "We're going to send you back to Africa." And then he went like this, "And all you Jews out there, you're going back to Israel." Now, I'm 15 years old. I just sat there looking at this guy like, on earth is this man talking about? You know, I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. And one of my classmates piped up and said, "Well, they live here. Why would they leave? What happens if they don't go?" And Matt Cole said, "Oh, they have no choice. If they do not leave voluntarily, they will be exterminated in the upcoming race war." That was the first time I ever heard the term race war. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's off his rocker. You know what? And later on that day, I was in my hallway by my locker, and Matt Cole and Martin Kerr were leaving. They'd been there all day talking to other POTC classes. And it was just me in the hallway. And they had to walk past me to go out the front door. And they saw me and they just paused in front of me. They didn't say anything to me, just looked at me and sneered. And then they started laughing and went on down the hall and out the door. I never forgot that. So that prompted me to go out and buy as many books as I could find on Black supremacy, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, racism, the Nazis in Germany, the neo-Nazis over here, the Klan, whatever else, just to self-educate. Because, you know, there were no courses you could take. I mean, there are no courses even today in college. Race 101 doesn't exist. So anyway, I have a vast library on all that stuff, and I just consumed all these books. So I graduated 2 years later in '76. I went to Howard University, where I graduated 4 years later, 1980, with my degree in music. So music became my profession, but learning about race relations became my obsession. And in 1982, you know, I was, you know, and you made a point there about extreme leftists and so forth and so on. Very good point, because I was trying to learn as much as I could, going to as many things as I could. Well, there were a lot of anti-Klan, far left organizations here in the DC area, and the Klan would try to recreate this march that they had back in the 1920s with about 40,000 Klansmen marching down Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House. So they're always trying to recreate that here. And so these anti-Klan committees and organizations would get together and have all these meetings. Some of these anti-Klan groups were as violent, if not more violent, than the Klan itself. And so I would see them out there handing out flyers. I get their flyers and I'd go to their meetings and, you know, just trying to learn, not to join, but to learn. And man, they were pretty out there. And so you remember Senator Robert Byrd?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't recall.
Well, Robert Byrd, when he died, he was the oldest living senator. He was from West Virginia. Before him, it was Strom Thurmond. But anyway, Senator Robert Byrd was a senator from West Virginia. Back in the 1940s, he was a Klansman. He was a great Kleagle, meaning a recruiter for the Klan. And he later on gave up all that ideology. He fought for civil rights, etc. But anyway, back at that time, anybody, you, me, anybody, could just walk down to the Capitol, walk right into the Capitol. You don't have to go through any metal detector like you do now. Just walk up to your congressman or senator's door, knock on the door, and go on in and talk.
The People's Building.
Huh?
It's the People's Building.
Exactly. It's our house. It's our house. So anyway, this girl who I'd always see at these meetings and at these rallies and stuff, handing out all this, anti-racism literature, was with this one anti-Klan group, white supremacist group, and I'd always talk to her, and get some of her literature, etc. And so she she would give me this stuff, and I got her number, and I would call her to find out, where the next meeting was, where the next rally was, etc. So she'd tell me, well, shortly thereafter, somebody planted a bomb in the doorway of Senator Byrd's office. He wasn't in the office, and the bomb blew out the door frame. Nobody got hurt, but it blew out that door frame, and that is what caused all those concrete pylons to be put around the Capitol and the metal detector and all that kind of stuff. That was the incident. All right, it took a few months for them to track down the people who did it, and one of them was that girl.
Jesus.
So I'm like, what? You got to stay away from those people, right? But, that was it. I'm not joining anybody's group. I'm just going to find out on my own, investigate on my own. So, that was my first introduction to. I didn't like what the far right was doing, and so I go to the far left meetings to see how do we combat this. But when that happened, I was like, no, man. Far is far, whether it's left or right. So you're absolutely 100% on target. Anyway, back to Matt Cole. So 8 years later, after I saw him in my high school in 10th grade, I'm 2 years out of college, graduated, and I developed contacts with people. And I found out about an unpublicized rally that was going to take place in Lafayette Park. Lafayette Park is this park right across the street from the White House. 24/7, there are people in Lafayette Park protesting something. They're always there. They set up their tents, spend the night there, whatever. 365 days a year. Whether there's nuclear weapons, abortion, you name it, they're there. All right. So the American Nazi Party was going to have a silent protest in Lafayette Park at 12 noon on this particular day. So I got down. Nobody knew about it, not even the cops. I got down there early, and I waited. And sure enough, here comes this van, and about 13 to 15 of these Nazis get out. There's nothing that indicates they're Nazis. No Gestapo uniforms, no SS insignias or swastikas, just these guys in dark black suits. Who do I see but Matt Cole and Martin Kerr, the same two guys who came to my high school 8 years prior. You never forget the face of somebody who tells you that we're going to send you somewhere, and if you don't go voluntarily, you'll be exterminated. So recognize it instantly. And so Matt Cole is getting all his Nazis lined up, standing there facing the White House silently. Now, this is Washington, D.C. It's like Times Square. A bunch of people just walking by, and, they don't know these are Nazis because they're not indicating that they're Nazis. I know they're Nazis. So once Matt Cole got everybody lined up, I walked right up to him. I felt that I had to confront him because I did not confront him back when I was 15 in my classroom. I just sat there looking at him.
Gotta face the dragon.
Yeah. So I walked right up to him and I said, Matt Cole. He jumped back in the line like, who is this black person who knows my name? And he said, do I know you? And I said, well, you spoke at my high school. And he said, what high school is that? And I named the high school. He goes, yes, I remember you. That was a long time ago. I said, yes, 8 years ago. He goes, well, how can I help you? I said, do you recall what you told me? He nodded his, he goes, yes. And I said, well, I'm still here. He says, well, I can see that. What can I do for you? I said, well, you can tell me who the hell gives you the authority to make permanent travel arrangements for me. He says, what's your name? I said, Daryl Davis. I was surprised. He put out his hand and he shook my hand. And then he did something that I've used before on different Klan people. He shook my hand, and he held my hand tight in his right hand, and he shook his left finger in my face at the same time, right? So he had control. He said, Mr. Davis, you have to understand one thing. It is in the interest of your race, the black race, to be a strong race. And you cannot be a strong race unless you are a pure race. And you cannot be a pure race if you are miscegenating with other races. It is in the interest of my race, the Aryan race, to also be a strong race and a pure race. And we are becoming a mongrel race by miscegenating with mud races such as yours. So anybody who's non-Aryan or white, he calls it Aryan, is a mud race. And so I'm not there to beat him up or fight with him. I'm just there to learn from him. I can figure out how to address him. And he finally let go of my hand. We continued talking. And then he was telling me that until the races learn that we cannot mix, we cannot live side by side. Once everybody understands that, that you don't mix with others, then we can coexist. And so he was telling me that his race was diminishing. This is in 1982. He said that if something is not done about it, in the year 2042, the white race will lose ground. They will no longer be the majority. So I was hearing about 2042 back in 1982. And he told me a lot of lies. But the thing about 2042 was true. And I've been following it. And like I said, I'm 66. When I was a kid, the Black population in this country was 12%. Native Americans, 1%. Latino, Hispanic Americans, almost 2%. And Asian Pacific Americans, almost 3%. Whites were like 86, 87%. Every year, all you have to do is go to uscensus.gov. The census is taken every decade, and you can see the trends, right? Today, Black people remain around 12%, 12.9. So they say 13%. We haven't really grown. Native Americans are almost at 2% now from 1%. So they haven't grown. Asian Americans are now almost at 6%. So they've almost doubled from their 3%. Latino Hispanic Americans are 17 point something percent, almost 18% here in this country now. So if you take, and by the way, in 2020, which was when the last census was taken, white people are 59% today, all right? So you take just 12% Black, 17% Latino, that right there is 29% non-white. This is happening, all right? When I first started doing this stuff 40 some years ago, there was the Ku Klux Klan, the American Nazi Party, and what they called white power skinheads. That was it, right? Today you got the Klan, the Nazis, the white power skinheads, the 1%ers, the 3%ers, the Proud Boys, the National Alliance, the Vanguard, on and on and on, all these groups. And they're all saying, come join us, we're gonna take our country back, And what they tell me is, Daryl, I don't want my grandkids to be brown. They call it the browning of America, or white genocide through miscegenation. And they're freaking out. So they, how old are you, Ty?
27.
27? Are you familiar with the term white flight?
I've heard it. I can't remember what it means. I remember it from back in Antifa days, but.
Right, okay, well, white flight barely exists anymore, okay? White flight, back in the day, you had white neighborhoods, and Blacks and Jews were not allowed to move into those neighborhoods. And they had covenant in these homes. If a white person buys a house, he signs a covenant that if he moves, he will not sell the house to a Black or a Jew. There were restricted neighborhoods, areas. So eventually all that had to go. And people were allowed to move into whatever neighborhood they wanted. Well, when Blacks or Jews started moving into these neighborhoods, white people would move out and move into another neighborhood. That's called another white neighborhood. That's called white flight. Anytime they have to come, they fly out, all right? So white flight today barely exists because the color of the American landscape has changed so much that anywhere you and I go, there's already somebody there who doesn't look like us, right? So these people are feeling that they're getting squeezed out. In their mind, they're the patriots. We discovered this country, we built this country, we wrote the Constitution, and now people are coming in here who don't look like us and squeezing out our identity. So, that's why you got all these groups saying, come join us, we're gonna take our country back. And so some of these people, out of fear of losing their identity, run and join these groups. But when the group does not take the country back as quickly as they would like it to, some of them get antsy and say, you know what? If the Klan can't do it or the whoever can't do it, I'll do it myself. And that's when they walk into the Black church in Charleston, South Carolina, and boom, boom, boom. Or the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, or the Buffalo grocery store, or the Walmart in El Paso, or the
Christchurch, New Zealand, because I collect and read manifestos actually, which I know sounds morbid as hell, but how are you going to understand evil if you don't go straight to the source?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's the thing we got to do. We got to try to understand that mentality, man. And see, this is why I'm so against banning books, regardless of what the book is, whether it's Turner Diaries or whether it's the biography of Martin Luther King Jr. Read everything you can get your hands on.
Absolutely.
So anyway, they run and join these groups, and when the group doesn't take the country back, they go out and try to do it themselves. And every time they get caught or shot and killed, and law enforcement goes and raids their property, what do they find? They find a cache of automatic weapons that are being stored for what they call rahowa. You know the term rahowa?
That's actually a term I haven't heard. I've always heard like Day of the Rope, Day of Judgment, shit like that, but
Day of the Rope,
that's a new one to me.
Right. Well, rahowa, R-A-H-O-W-A, is a white supremacist term for the race war, rahowa, which are the first two letters of three words: racial holy war, rahowa. And they also call it the boogaloo, as opposed to the 1960s music dance, the boogaloo.
Right.
But yeah, rahowa or the boogaloo. And so, and even that term, take our country back, is a dog whistle. That term was originally a Klan term from 1954, when Brown versus the Board of Education, when the Supreme Court desegregated schools. And you can find footage of Klan rallies where you have some Grand Dragon or Imperial Wizard standing behind a microphone and some flaming cross behind him. He's saying, "I'm not going to let my little white boys and girls go to school, little niggers. We're going to take our country back," meaning back to segregation. And that became the mantra, that became the slogan, "Take our country back." All right, so that's 1954. Fast forward to 2009, a new political party had been born, and it was called the Tea Party. And they were using that same slogan, "Take our country back." So they had a rally down on the Capitol, nothing like January 6th, very peaceful rally. And I went down there, and because I'm only 35 minutes from the Capitol, US Capitol. I go down there, they're all on the steps with their "Take our country back, take back our country" signs. And I said to them, I said, "Why are you using a KKK slogan?" "Oh, no, sir, we don't mean it like that." "You are aware that it's a Klan slogan, right?" Yeah, but that was way back when. We mean it something totally different." I said, "But you're leaving it open-ended. You're saying take our country back, but you're not saying take it back to what? Take it back from who?" "Well, sir, what we mean is this. We're going to take our country back from the Democrats, take it back to Republican rule." I said, "Okay, why don't you say that? That way you close it off. There's no misinterpretation as to what you mean." "Well, sir, that's what we mean." I said, "Well, I understand that, but I still have a problem. President Jimmy Carter was a Democrat. President Bill Clinton was a Democrat. Where were you then when they were in office screaming, 'Take our country back'? You weren't out there. Now you got a black guy in the White House and you're screaming, 'Take our country back.' What am I supposed to think?" "Oh, well, sir, we told you what we meant," and then they walked away from me. So I knew exactly what they meant, right? And if you saw President Trump come out right before the insurrection and address his followers, what did he say? He said, "We're all going to march down to the Capitol. I'll be right there with you, blah, blah, blah." And then he said, quote unquote, "You will never take back our country with weakness. You must show strength." Those are his exact, I'm quoting him. Got it on video. And that's exactly what they did. They marched down there. They did not show weakness. They showed strength to take their country back. You got people walking through the Capitol Rotunda carrying the Confederate battle flag. Also a guy in a Camp Auschwitz t-shirt. You don't have to ask them what they want. That's what they want to go back to. And, it's very disturbing, very disturbing. And I fault a lot of it on our educational system. Because people, I'm not faulting so much putting the fault on these people. They've been led down, the wrong path. Some of them do know better, but many of them don't, because they've not been educated properly. If you go to high school in the North, you were taught the Civil War was fought over slavery. And yes, that is correct. It was fought over slavery. If you go to high school in the South, you're taught, no. The Civil War was fought over states' rights. And
well, thankfully, that wasn't my experience. Thankfully, we touched on the slavery subject. That's basically all we touched on the Civil War, really, to the point where it was kind of like...
You're way out in the West Coast.
Oh no, I only moved here 8 years ago. So I'm actually from Texas. I was raised in Odessa, and then high school I would have been down in South Texas actually, so a little closer to the border. But the thing with it being down in South Texas actually is it's a large Mexican and Black majority, so there actually is like very small chunk of white people. So at least from my experience, thankfully, that was something that was heavily touched on. But there were other school districts, I will say, at the time that I know were pushing that aside or tossing it out the window or book banning. Um,
Right.
can I maybe offer? Or I'm not cutting you off, am I? I wanted to. Okay, so this is my perspective of January 6th, and I think we both have different perspectives of it, but I just want to get to the right part. So, in anything that I say, I'm not trying to wash over white supremacy. I recognize that there are white supremacists at January 6th, that there were elements within its ranks. So this was how January 6th went for me. The day before January 6th, my feed was littered with these supposed flyers from the right, and it was saying, prepare for a day of chaos, prepare for a day of rage. And I set alarms for, I don't remember what time it was that day, but by the time I woke up and it said Jan 6 on my alarm, I turned on my TV, and immediately they were trying to break down the doors. Like, that was the first thing I saw. So it had already popped off, and I was like, holy shit, it's actually happening. I think I had about 7 different screens, phones, computers, tabs, anything that I had a different angle of January 6th, and I was watching it all fucking day, pacing back and forth like I was in the Batcave or something. And I saw a lot of the obscurities that happened. I saw the cops letting people through, opening the doors, the gates. The more the stories went on, it turned out that they disabled the security cameras, that they were offering tours. I don't believe that January 6th was a far right insurrection. I believe that there were far right insurrectionists within its ranks. I believe that equating it to an insurrection is like equating the Portland rioters setting the federal courthouse on fire to an insurrection. I believe that in terms of an insurrection, you need to go after military targets. It's not as simple as going into the Capitol and planting your flag. And I get that there's a symbolic gesture behind it to where if something like that were achieved, it'd be an activation. But the more that seems to come out with January 6th, it just seems to have the deep state and, quite frankly, a lot of Democrats all over it. And there's footage from the police crowd to where they're like, yeah, we have undercovers dressed as Antifa. Look out for the colored nozzles on the end of their guns. You'll know that's one of ours. Look out for certain tags and markings. They had people pretending to be Antifa. They had people pretending to be the far right. I think what happened after the assassination of JFK is it was a coup. I think that we are under a new form of power. I don't think that the traditional America we all like to think we live in has been my reality. I think that right now, especially with COVID, it feels like all the rights are being transferred to globalists or the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization, who's putting out a treaty that I'm pretty sure just got signed that says any nation that signs with us, we're going to dictate medical policy. Or if it has to do with shootings, climate change, we're going to dictate how you operate that from now on. It's out of your hands. So protesting your local government for changes in policy, it won't matter anymore because the World Health Organization is an international body. Simultaneously, that year, the next year, the following, even before, you have coups happening all over the world. It just happened to be the season of coups. And the more that comes out, and especially with my experience of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, they wanted there to be some sort of battle in DC. They technically got it with May 29th because Antifa went to DC first and set the White House lawn on fire and set Trump to the bunker. And the more that comes out with that, there was a lot of dark shit that went down, and the media did a lot of lying in regards to that in an effort to slam Trump. Whether you think he's good or bad, it's, in my view, it's kind of like go after him for things that are legit. Otherwise, you just discredit all the wrong things that he actually does do that need attention. But it seems like January 6th was the ultimate flashpoint where they used our little faux civil war. They used our LARPing and fighting in the streets. They finally got everybody together on that day and fighting. And now we're seeing all these expansionary government powers to where it's not that they want to crack down on the far right. It's that they want to crack down on everybody. And then you look into a lot of the Black Lives Matter riots and rallies. There were police, there were federal infiltrators, and yeah, 100%. And especially now with a lot of people coming across the border, I think that we have foreign agents that are, especially with the colleges, that we're seeing a lot of that being introduced. And it is kind of a white supremacist worst nightmare, but to see it at the highest levels being orchestrated in a way kind of like the Turner Diaries, to where it takes something like that, which should just seem like a crazy Nazi fan fiction, and makes it seem more like prophecy. And there's far right conservative elements in the government that I believe are pushing it as well, but there's different forms of accelerationist operating at the same point, to where even during the rallies here, there was a website called Stormfront, and you could go listen to Nazis talking, and they would laugh. Oh God. Yeah, like it's rough, but I mean, if you want to hear what the other side's saying, but they were laughing and they're just like, guys, don't even go out tomorrow. Don't even go out the next day. Stay your asses at home and watch the show. And everything that happened was self-inflicted damage. But in that chaos, like here in Eugene, it's a communist hellhole. People are in the streets. The gender madness, LGBT madness has gotten to the point where people are identifying as non-human entities as itself. People are shitting in the streets. There's fentanyl out the ass. Kids are dropping out of school. And there's hammers and sickles spray painted everywhere, and murals, and Black Lives Matter and Free Palestine. And I live in a neighborhood that I'm surrounded by white supremacists right now. They probably don't feel too comfortable going into town and seeing that constantly. It's like we have all these accelerationist efforts coming in at once, but I really feel like January 6th was entrapment for a lot of Americans, and that they used the Nazis in those ranks, and they used the Antifa supporters that they had come to the Capitol, and they cracked down on a lot of innocent people. The QAnon shaman, they painted him out to be some devils. Have you ever listened to any of the interviews with, I can't remember his name, but the QAnon shaman?
I know who he is, but no, I've not heard any interviews.
So he does a fantastic interview with Michael Malice, who's an anarchist, and he has a really great show. He's friends with Joe Rogan and Lex Fridman and all of them. The QAnon shaman is probably one of the most sane human individuals I've ever heard from in my entire life. And there was no white supremacist. I do wonder about the black sun element, the black sun on his arm, but part of me wonders if that's like the swastika and it's kind of like a reclaiming, because I do know people who do that here, even on the far left, because they want to try and take it back. But I really think you should listen to his testimony. I think he was even running for like congressman or senator or something down in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. But
send me a link to some of his stuff.
100%, because the more I listen to people on the ground and the more the footage comes out, it's like this feels like January 6th was an effort to demonize the government's political targets as terrorists, no matter whether they're far right or far left. And there seems to have been a communist agenda at play that's dumbed down the education system, that now what once created loyal factory workers creates revolutionary dropouts and junkies. And it's the system, seems like it was designed to be broken, but it was designed to be broken in a way to where we were presented with this mess, to where we're just all constantly finger pointing at each other. And I think that I just want to put that out there. I think that January 6th, and even groups like the Proud Boys and the 3%ers, there's other problems that I have with a lot of the other ones. The more time goes on, I do really question. I don't think that this was a white supremacist driven plot. I think that they were there. And everything you mentioned, too, with white supremacy at the Capitol, those are all the same faults that Antifa has, putting out mantras that are left way too broad, that are way too easily to be interpreted. So they put out a message that sounds good and fluffy and short, but then the communists come in and then they take it over. Because the more the Black Lives Matter rallies went on, the more and more the black people filtered out, the more and more the same people filtered out, the Occupy Wall Street people filtered out, and the more the communists came in, the more I saw that goddamn hammer and sickle. And it seems like our government is facilitating this race war, be it by those who are ideologically driven to do so, or those who just want to do it to turn a profit. But it seems like the white supremacists were right in a lot of ways, that these they know what makes these people tick. The government knows what makes white supremacy tick more than the average American. So the average American wouldn't think about these types of things or to understand the ideology. But it just makes so much sense why they're freaking out with the order of events. And
no, I don't know. I don't think every person who came to the Capitol was a white supremacist by any means. But yes, there were a number of them there who were driven by fear of being erased. Why else would you come out with the Civil War battle flag or a Camp Auschwitz T-shirt and blame everything on the blacks or on the Jews or people coming across the border. Hell, they came across the border themselves, generations ago. Same type of deal. And I think, there is a lot of misinformation. There are a lot of provocateurs that are in there to cause things to flare up and things like that. What's the old saying? Divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
So got people fighting amongst themselves. It makes it easier for you to come in and take over.
Yeah. And then to receive funding too, because Capitol Police, after being involved with that, after being caught on camera facilitating that, they got millions of dollars. And they got more equipment, and not only that, but then they got the power to surveil people. Like, if they wanted to question me for questioning this, they could send a representative to my door all the way from DC. Like, that's the rights that they were given in that moment.
Well, I can tell you, I did not know the chief of police at the Capitol, Capitol chief of police, during the January 6th thing. Apparently he had to resign or whatever else. I did not know him, and there were a lot of problems there or whatever. But the new guy, the one that they have there now, I know him very, very well, very well. And he's a good friend of mine. His name is Chief Thomas Manger. And he was the chief of police here where I live. And I would meet with him the third Thursday of every month. If I was in town, not on tour or whatever else, I would meet with him. And he is a no-nonsense person. He is very level-headed and a very, very fair person. I'm not a big fan of a lot of police people. I've even helped get rid of police chiefs and get rid of police officers here where I live because of their racism or their corruption. But I can tell you, this guy is a stand-up guy. And, he won't put up with any nonsense, and he'll give people as much freedom as the law allows for.
See, and that's good to hear. But I think what concerns me in the modern moment is even good people get taken advantage of. Like, one of the clips that came out from January 6th that scared the hell out of me was there was a black officer there, and he throws down his fucking shit as everybody's charging past him. And he's like, they sold us out. He's like, they fucking sold us out. He's like, they put us out here for this to happen. They staged this, essentially. And I think that can happen to anybody right now. Anybody in that position. That's what scares me, not necessarily the integrity of the individuals. Well, the integrity of the individuals in a lot of institutions are very questionable right now, to be sure. But even the good ones especially, are targets. And that's what scares me, because I do want to see a sound system in the United States where we can feel comfortable with policing, where I've learned we need police. I have called the police a couple of times since I've left Antifa and said, fuck you, you all deserve to burn to the ground. Like, it turns out they're pretty essential. But I worry about the government, because the cops are the victims in this as much as any of the protesters, because the cops were put into this situation too. We all have the same people at the top that really far right, far left, and then the police. We were just kind of pawns being moved around. And
so what was your take on when Black Lives Matter first came out?
I thought it was inspirational. I think I fooled myself a lot at the time, because I had myself fooled that it was all about fighting for African American freedom and police brutality. But really, I had a lot of reservations about the government prior. I lived in an area when Operation Jade Helm was going down in Texas, where they were listing U.S. states as hostile territories. All the red states from the 2012 map were listed as hostile, and they sent military into our towns, and that's when a lot of police militarization was happening simultaneously. So, I kind of say Black Lives Matter wasn't ever really about black people. It was just about jumping on the opportunity to act. But I had positive feelings about it in the beginning.
Well, I'll give you my take. Well, first, it was born out of the murder of Trayvon Martin back in 2013. And the founders of that movement, they did not, they co-opted the idea, basically, from Martin Luther King, when he had created the Montgomery bus boycott when Rosa Parks got arrested. for not giving up her seat to a white person. All right. Rosa Parks was not the first Black woman to refuse to give up her seat. There have been many others, but they did not make the news in Montgomery, Alabama. That was not national news. So Martin Luther King had the idea of, we need to put this bus situation down here in Montgomery in the spotlight. So in the national spotlight, so everybody can see what's going on. Put it in a fishbowl so everybody can look in, and maybe that pressure will cause them to change their law, because it was a law that Black person had to give up the right to their seat. Now, it was a great idea what he did, to put it in the national spotlight, because it worked. He did that boycott for a year. Everybody was seeing it, and the pressure was put on the Montgomery bus company, Montgomery, Alabama, and they changed their law. And then guess what? It had a ripple effect. All the other southern states who had the same law said, you know what? We better change ours too. Otherwise, King's gonna come here and start all this stuff. So it rippled, and all these states changed their laws. So that's where Black Lives Matter got the idea. They wanted to put the national spotlight on the plight of young Black men who, for lack of a better term, were being murdered by white police officers for holding their cell phone, holding their wallet, getting shot in the back, whatever. Some were guilty, some were not guilty. All right, but it was happening more so where Black guys in that situation went to their grave. White guys in that situation either went to jail or went home. So put the national spotlight on that and show that disparity. So it was a good idea, I thought. But where I think they got off track, they did not want to trademark the name Black Lives Matter. They did not want to centralize it. They wanted it to be organic, right? So unlike, say, the NAACP or the Red Cross or the Boy Scouts of America, these are all centralized organizations where you have one president, you have a headquarters, policy is created in headquarters and disseminated to all the chapters around the country. Black Lives Matter does not have chapters, they have factions. Faction has no centralization. And so you got 90 different factions of Black Lives Matter all over the country. Some are very aggressive. Some are laid back. Some are full of Black supremacists. Some are Blacks and whites working together. Some factions are more whites in there than Black people. Some want to sit down with the city or county legislature and draw up bills to do this, to do that, to remove a statue, take down a flag or whatever. Others just want to go rip it down and spray paint BLM all over the place. Okay, so what happens is the media does not differentiate, say, okay, let's say, Black Lives Matter in Eugene wants to, go out and rip down a statue and destroy stuff. And then Black Lives Matter in Portland wants to sit down with the city legislature and draw up bills and laws to make things happen. All right. When something bad happens, the media says Black Lives Matter did this. They don't say the Eugene faction of Black Lives Matter. They just say Black Lives Matter. So it paints it with a broad brush. So it hurts the people who are trying to do the right thing. And it's just like today the Klan. I mean, I'm not saying the Klan's doing anything good, but the Klan is fractured as well. There is no more the Ku Klux Klan. There are splinter clans all over the place, and they don't get along with each other most of the time. And so you have a lot of Black Lives Matter factions that don't get along with one another. There are some that rip me a new ass. They don't like me, want nothing to do with me, etc. I'm a sellout, etc. But there have been at least 6 who have contacted me and said, "Hey, you give workshops. Can you teach us how to do what you do?" So they're all over the map.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is the more communistic element of it. The new Black Lives Matter is definitely communist. I mean, they've kind of said themselves that we're well-trained Marxists, and that's got to be open for everybody, so less centralized, which I think is also largely what's causing damage. But what's the point I was gonna make? Sorry, I had it, then I lost it. One moment. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, well, along with the communist angle, you're talking about how Black Lives Matter wanted to put the spotlight on the Black kids with the cell phones getting shot and all these isolated incidents. There was a really great interview with the son of the Hamas founder that Jordan Peterson did recently, and he was describing the Intifada. And events that had led to a lot of the struggles in Israel and the West Bank. And, you know, he describes stone throwing and the purpose of the kids going out and acting out and attacking the IDF or the patrolling soldiers was basically to get them riled up. And anytime any of the kids got shot or gunned down or anything like that, then it became a national story. Then it became, and this is from his mouth, not mine, but it became basically, look at this poor dead Palestinian child, look at the evil murdering Israelis. And the more they were able to operate kind of under that framework and push that message out, well, what were the rest of us in the West doing? Holy shit, Israel's gunning down Palestinian kids. Holy shit, another one, more dead people, more dead kids, which was happening and wasn't good. But essentially, the Intifada and having kids throw stones and behave in that matter and to get involved in riots and protests was to get that media coverage, to isolate those events, and then basically to put it out to the rest of everybody kind of as a global rallying cry. And I kind of feel like that's what's going on with Antifa. And now, especially with it mixing in with the jihadist elements, it's like, oh, you two were meant for each other at this point, because they make statements back and forth.
A lot of that is used for propaganda to recruit and affect people's beliefs. Like, for example, Matt Cole. All right. When I met with him, 8 years after he came to my high school, and I had that conversation with him on the sidewalk across the street from the White House. All right. Like I said, nobody knew they were having this. I found out through different channels. So there were no police there, nobody, because people just walking by not knowing these were Nazis. Well, about 4 months later, they had their national American Nazi Party recruitment rally over there. And so that had been announced 4 months in advance. People came in droves to protest. They wrote letters to the DC Police Department, don't give them a permit, blah, blah, blah. Well, you have to give them a permit. They have a right to march, they have a right to freedom of assembly, whether we like it or not, right? So people came from New York, from Baltimore, from Philadelphia, Richmond. They came with baseball bats, bricks, chains, bottles, you name it. I was there. In person watching this, all right? And it was nothing but a full-blown riot. And what the police did was they had all these Nazis coming from around the country, and it ended up being about 50 of them. In the next county over, they charted at some undisclosed location. They all reported there. The police put them all on a bus and escorted them into DC. That way they wouldn't be all coming in different cars and causing havoc all over the place. All right. Put them on a bus, brought them into DC, and made a human circle around them. Now, because they had that police protection, they wore their Gestapo uniforms. They flew their swastika flags and did all their Zig Heil Hitler, white power stuff. I saw Matt Cole and Martin Kerr. They weren't in their black suit and tie, looking, nondescript. They were full out Nazi gear, right? And taunting the protesters. So they were in the middle of this circle. People would rush the police. Police would have their shields and their batons and push people back, right? And then, because they couldn't get through and attack the Nazis, they began throwing their bricks and whatever else they had over the heads of the police, hoping to land on one of the Nazis in the circle. But when they started doing that, the cops pulled out the tear gas and started spraying everybody. And this tear gas had something called CS gas in it, which was also a skin irritant. So not only did you start crying, but you would scratch because it itched. And you would scratch so hard your skin would come off. I'm serious. I got a whiff of that stuff. And so then people got mad at that, and they began attacking the police, overturning police cars, bashing out the windows and kicking out the headlights, setting buildings on fire downtown in DC. You can go on YouTube, find all the footage of it. You'll even see me walking by, a young me. This is back in the 80s. But anyway, they were doing all that stuff. Well, I came home with my secretary, and we watched the news. And now back then, all you had was network TV. There was no cable back then. You had CBS, ABC, and NBC. And there was Matt Cole sitting in the NBC affiliate here in DC, WRC, sitting in the station with the anchor person, and they were showing the footage. He said, you see, it's not the Nazis overturning police cars and denying people their rights. It's the Jews and the blacks. They're denying us our right to freedom of assembly, denying us our right to freedom of speech. And then I understood exactly what he was doing. He knew this was going to happen. He knew it was going to happen, and he wanted to get that official footage of a legitimate, TV news network, ABC, CBS, NBC, who are all there. Take that footage out to the Pacific Northwest, out there where you are, Idaho, Oregon, Washington State, all that, and show it and say, you see what's happening in our nation's capital? Our country is being run by Zog, right? Zionist occupied government, all that kind of stuff. Come join us. We're going to take our country back. And that was a great recruitment tool for him. It just goes exactly what you were saying, how people set other people up to do certain things, and then they use that as a reason to go do something else and join our force in order to prevent this kind of thing.
And that's just one night of riots. I'm thinking in Portland, I think it was over 200 or 300 consecutive days at one point of rioting. That's like 200 tapes. That's 200 recruitment seminars. Like, if you want to think of it in terms like that, like people like to think that they understand the optics going in and that they understand what optics are, but people don't tend to zoom out and look at their behavior. It's one reason I feel so guilty for the part that I played in everything. It's just like, if I was just able to zoom out a little bit, just a little bit more, could have pulled out sooner. And it's good that I did pull out, but like, just so much that I shouldn't have been involved with to begin with. And
what was the what was the thing that made you pull out? What was the, I guess, camel that broke the straw? The straw that broke the camel's back.
So I've been asked that a couple times, and I can't ever give a solid answer, because really it's a cult, so it's an abusive situation. It's abuse dynamics, and so it's very similar I had an abusive father that I lived with, and whenever I realized how bad that was, there had already been so much compounded, like hundreds of instances, to where it finally just got to the point where it's like, okay, this is what it is. I need to quit denying. There was all the violence happening simultaneously, climate events, cosmic events. I describe Antifa as a spiritual trap, and it happened to fall in a time that if you open the Bible and turn to Revelations, kind of seems like things are happening. So it felt very spiritual, but like I was trying to reinterpret God and a bunch of different things, drugs, alcohol. But there was a lot of instances, like there was a man named Isaiah Wagner who ran for mayor here, and he was an African-American man who I saw at multiple protests. Never had a conversation with him, but so the first time I saw him, he was just speaking, and he's talking about his family, and he's just like, look, I got family and kids at home, and I got a job. Nobody wants to be here. We need to make sure this is as peaceful as possible. Work with the police, walk, be polite, be human beings towards one another, essentially. And it was a pretty good, feel-good message. The second time I saw him, we were downtown, and I think we were close to the police station whenever this happened. There was a crowd and probably like 1,000 people. There's a lot of people that day. There was a lot of fucking people. And we saw police like on the roofs with like sniper rifles, and they were like patrolling the edge of the crowd, but it felt like they were all kind of focused on us. So there was a lot of intimidation there. But, we just hear cars, tires whirring, and when we turn around, there's a black military kind of style SUV that comes through, and it has like different militia patches on the side of it and shit. And it comes through the crowd, and it doesn't hit anybody, but it winds up right in the middle of the street. So like, here's the middle of the road, or here's the road. It pulls in right here, and I'm kind of like right here. So I'm like 10 feet away from it or so. And essentially the guy gets out with an AR-15, and he starts pointing at everybody. He's like, you fags, and you need this and you that, you need to get the fuck out of here. I'm going to start firing. And he's trying to clear the crowd, and he's pointing at like women, children, everybody in the crowd is getting this gun pointed at. And Isaiah Wagner comes running up, and he fucking stands in front of the AR-15 and has it pointed to his chest and his head. And he's just looking at us, and he's just like, go. He wants a reason to shoot. He's looking for a reason to start something. You need to walk away. You need to go right now. And he was trying to get us away from him, and there was people trying to start shit. And he backed him off, and he's like, no, go. You know what he's here to do. No, just keep going. So my husband and my friends were there with me, and I'm just like, we got to go. And the next time I saw him was at the jail. And so by the time I got there, it looked like Molotov cocktails had already been lit. Flags were on fire. People were raging. There was some stuff I had missed. The cops were on the roof of the building. The people in the jail were cheering and making a scene from the windows. And it looked like they were about to hurl the fire over into the parking lot past the fence where the police cars were. And I saw him break down. He's crying, and it was rough. It was a lot of emotion, and it just kind of took him down. He's just like, what the fuck are you white people doing? You're fucking killing us. Like, what is this anymore? He's like, this has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. None of this shit. And then that's when things started to really change hard. And then I kept going to protest afterwards, kind of wanting to see and like for the different like framework and try to still understand what was going on. But I definitely had a different frame of perspective after that. And yeah, Isaiah Wagner, he was one hell of a guy for a man I've never met. He ran for mayor. I don't even think he made it on the ballot. I think that there happened something last minute. I just wrote him in anyways. I was just like, fucking trust this dude. I don't trust anybody else in this town. But I don't know. So he was working with Black Lives Matter for a while there, and the biggest beef that people had with him was he was wanting to work with the police. I met a girl who was a member of Antifa who left, who I actually tried to tell her the story to, and I'm like about to cry telling her the story. And she's like, yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah, he likes to showboat and pretend to be the hero. He's a misogynist. And I'm just like, did you not just hear this fucking story about how this man just stood in front of an AR-15 in front of thousands of people, risking a bullet? Yeah. But hey, he hates women. So I think I don't know if he got forced out of the political space. I know that him and Black Lives Matter were definitely beefing at that time, though. But I would love to know where he's at now. I hope he's doing something good and still fighting the good fight.
What's his name? Isaiah what? What's his last name?
Wagner.
Wagner. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I'll send you some information on him.
Yeah, definitely. What was your take on where did this happen? Did this happen
in Eugene?
Yeah, I'm talking about another incident. With I think Antifa was involved. Was it in Milwaukee or somewhere in Wisconsin maybe, where some guy was walking around with an AR-15 and ended up shooting and killing a couple people, and he got let off.
I think that's happened a couple of times, and a lot of it too. Like people want to pretend like calling George Soros a Nazi is anti-Semitic. There's interviews where he kind of lays out his past, and a lot of these Soros DAs and a lot of these blue states, they tend to let off a lot of crime. Like I think Portland actually just got rid of their DA that was appointed by him. But yeah, Antifa has very, very special permissions that they think that the far right and the KKK have, but they don't. The fact that we were able to do things that we did, throw stones, curse, and spit, and that people were able to go out there and smash and throw Molotovs and the cops weren't able to do anything about it. That's power is what that is. That is power and permission. But a lot of people got off the hook for a lot of shit, and a lot of people deserve justice. Just the same as if some neo-Nazi had gone out and done some of this crap. Like there's businesses that have gone completely under just because they weren't able to sustain themselves. Like the Kyle Rittenhouse story, they like to paint that kid.
Kyle Rittenhouse, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, no. So this is basically what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse, because I was really big on that case for a minute, because again, this was another kid I was just like, he's just a racist, he's a prick. So Kyle Rittenhouse he was working security for Black Lives Matter prior to all of this. He had some friends that were working at the car dealership in the area. And essentially because of the riots and the chaos and the carnage and everything happening, the insurance companies are like, we're not going to cover your cars. If your cars get burned and smashed, well, good luck. We can't just insure an entire community that's gone to shit. So he had friends of color, I think Native American and Black, potentially even, who were like, hey, we need your help. Can you please come over? Because he'd known these kids. He'd gone to school with these kids. And I'm not sure if they were involved in the protest, but they're like, we need security. We know you know how to shoot. Can you please come and help us out? We know you have past experience working with Black Lives Matter. We're really scared that something's going to happen to our car lot. And it's kind of like the George Floyd tape. We got little snippets, but we never got the final picture till there was judgment. you know, and when Kyle Rittenhouse case, he was attacked. They came and they slammed a skateboard over the back of his head. They started beating him before he even thought about pulling the trigger. Something Rosenbaum, the guy who did it, he had just gotten out of jail for beating and raping his girlfriend and was a pedophile. And they smeared this kid as a Nazi and as Satan and as Hitler, and it's just, and like with the George Floyd tape, now that I've seen the full George Floyd tape, I would have never gone out and said George Floyd's name if I had actually seen the full footage. I don't believe he was murdered. I believe it was very unfortunate, and I think that there's a lot to be dissected about it, and that's something I'm going to try to do on my channel. But
why don't you think he was murdered? I'll give you my opinion. I think he was lynched. I think he was lynched. But I'd like to hear why you think that he wasn't, and then I'll tell you why I think he was.
So for the picture that I was presented in the very beginning was there was no way out for him, that Derek Chauvin had came, that they had had prior interactions with each other even, and that essentially there was no mercy from the very beginning, and that it was an argument, and then it was a knee on the neck, and that this happened within a span of 5 minutes. There was never more than 4 or 5 minutes of footage for anything having to do with George Floyd. Have you seen the Fall of Minneapolis documentary?
No.
I would recommend that. That's where, at least to my knowledge, the first place they put it out in full, and they have a very unbiased perspective where they just kind of break it down and let you watch it for yourself, and then it shows what happened in Minneapolis following. But you see him swallow a ball of fentanyl. You see it chewed in his mouth. He's freaking out and he's telling the officer, "My mother just died. My mother just died. Please, I don't want to get shot." I don't agree with the move. He does come up to the window and he has the gun pointed first thing. I do not believe that that is the move. But he said, "My mother just died. I've been shot." His mother had died over 2 or 3 years before. He either wasn't shot or was shot a very long time prior. So there could be some trauma involved with that. But Chauvin was like, "I'm not going to shoot you. I just want to talk to you. I need you to put your hands on the wheel." And he's basically spends like 20 minutes, not really like forcefully arguing with him, being like, "Hey, dude, let's get you into a mental hospital. Let's get you some care. We need to get you taken care of. You can't be doing this. That was a fake dollar bill right now. I know back there. I know you're on drugs. I need you to calm down." The drugs that he swallowed over that course of time, you can see the overdose start to happen, and to where he's like, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe." We were all led to believe that that happened whenever the knee hit the neck. He was saying, "I can't breathe" for 15 minutes before Chauvin even touched him. That suggests to me that the drugs were getting to him, because I've seen similar things where, you know, there's a video where a guy was locked up in a cell and the cop had seemingly had no formal training on drug use, and the dude's just having an overdose and he's having to take off his shirt and he's sweating and he's just all over the place, and the cop's like, "What the fuck are you doing right now?" And watching that and looking at George Floyd's behavior, I think it was an overdose. I think additional pressure to the backside didn't help, but from certain angle, or from looking at different angles, I don't even think the knee was on the neck. It seemed like it was right here. And one of the things the documentary breaks down is they show the police training manual, and whether it's good or bad, I don't think it should be the move, but whether it's good or bad, it was a very specific move that was in the police training manual that he was trained to do.
Okay,
but that's my perspective on it.
Okay, I would have to disagree 100%. What I saw was the knee on the neck, and I saw Chauvin's hand in his pocket, in his own pocket, pushing down on his knee, on his thigh, to add more pressure to his knee on the man's neck. Now you got 4 cops there, Chauvin and his 3 colleagues. One guy was sitting on his legs. The Asian American guy was standing on the sidewalk trying to hold people back, and the other third guy there. There's no reason whatsoever. Well, first of all, you said that the police said it was a fake $20 bill. That's never been proven. That has never been proven that it's $20 that the $20 bill was counterfeit. Okay, when Floyd went into the store and presented whatever he was buying and handed this man the money or whatever, the clerk looked at it and thought this might be counterfeit. All right, and he did the right thing. If you think something is counterfeit, call the police. All right, he did the right thing. All right, he didn't know for sure. I have money in my pocket right now in my wallet. I can show you my $20 bills. I have $100 bill in my pocket. If I buy something, someone's gonna give me some 20s back. I don't know if they're fake or not. All right, so it's also possible that George Floyd did not know if his money was fake or real. We don't know, because that's why we have a court. That's why we don't do judgment and execution on the street. We follow the rules of the court and have a jury or a judge decide. So he never got his day in court. He died over a $20 bill that may or may not have been fake. Those cops should have, if he was resisting or they thought he was, they could have tased him. You got 4 males there who could have taken him down, shackled him, handcuffed him, taken him away to the thing. But no, this guy had to sit on his neck until he died. And he went to. Now I agree with you that I think there was some prior history between Floyd and Chauvin, whether it was over the same girl or whatever history they had, because that's been put forth too, that they're both trying to date the same girl in some club where one of them worked. I think Chauvin worked as a bouncer and Floyd worked there as something else.
And he had a history of aggressing people.
So did Chauvin.
No, that's what I meant, Chauvin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? And even his wife said that, and so did his ex-wives. But anyway, so there was some history there. He should have been. He should have had his day in court. Was this guy going around shooting people and stabbing people? No, he was not doing that. Yeah, all he was doing was putting out a $20 bill, which none of us know if it was fake or not. Maybe, if he did know and he was in the wrong, yeah, he's in the wrong. Maybe he didn't know, but we will never find that out because he was not allowed his day in court. He was lynched for that. What is a lynching? A lynching is when you have a mob of people who intend to execute what they consider to be justice before somebody has their day in court. Okay. So you had lynch mobs who were going to people to the jails, taking prisoners out, stringing them up from trees back in the day and whatever else. That was a lynch mob. He was denied his day in court. What was I going to say? So now Chauvin is in prison for life, pretty much. He'll be dead before he comes out of there. He was stabbed not too long ago.
He was actually stabbed. The documentary I was talking to you about, he was actually stabbed a week after it released. After the full presentation was brought down, because the thing is like, even with the different perspectives on what happened with Derek Chauvin, the response, Minneapolis gave up its police department.
Well, as they should. The chief of police, testified against his officer, and I got to respect that, because I don't believe in that code of blue bullshit.
Yeah, and Minneapolis Police Department was incredibly corrupt, and I think as time goes on, my perspective changes on a lot of things. So, like, I want to leave room for, growth and further understanding. It's just scary because, before the man was even thrown in jail fully, cities had already started falling, and but that's taking it away from the incident itself. But, I don't know. I feel like a lot of things were ruined, at least because of what happened to George Floyd and because of the fear it created. A lot of things were put into place that
George Floyd did not create that. I think personally, I think Chauvin did. I think he's exactly where he belongs. I'm glad he didn't die when he got stabbed, because I want him to be able to live and see all the damage that he did. He'll probably get stabbed again at some point, and I hope he doesn't die from that either. I hope it's another lesson for him. Maybe he'll cry out for his mama and say he can't breathe. That's just my personal feeling, because I've seen that stuff. I've seen it close and personal. I know corrupt cops. I've helped get rid of cops. Even a police chief. So to me, it's a little more personal. But say that incident should have gone to court. There was enough of a police presence there to lock the man up manhandle him, overpower him, put him in the paddy wagon or the backseat of the car, strap him in, and take him to jail. And when the paramedics showed up, Derek Chauvin would not let them come and see what was wrong with Floyd. And he kept saying, "I can't breathe." Did they show that in the documentary?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, check that out. The paramedics came on the scene, and Chauvin would not let them come up to him.
That's not great.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No. Like I said, like my perspective isn't to paint one side or the other. Like all I know from this incident is that a lot of damage was caused in the name of it. And I think when I talk about blame, it's less so who do we blame for the current conditions, George Floyd or Derek Chauvin. It's like it's more of the activists. It's more of the people who took, like, yeah, we all get to watch these things for sure, but there's just so many people who took it and then they put their own spin on it, whether they were on the right or the left. They took it.
I don't think Floyd could be blamed at all. I mean, he wasn't an activist. No. He may have been a drug dealer. He may have been a criminal. I don't know. But he certainly did not deserve to die on the street. When you have paramedics there and you got 4 cops who should take him and lock him up. If they thought this man had passed a $20, listen, if you were accused of passing a $20 bill and you're laying on your stomach and you're handcuffed behind your back and you got a cop sitting on your legs and one sitting on your neck or whatever, and all you've done, let's say you did pass a fake $20 bill, that is not a violent crime. So why are you dying a violent death? If you were, and you remember Dylan Roof, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you see Dylan Roof's arrest?
Mm-mm.
Go check it out.
Ginger? Was it pretty ginger?
Yeah,
did they put a blanket over his shoulder or something like that? It's like something like that.
They gently put him in the car and strapped him. He just murdered 9 people. All right. And then Dylan Roof said, "I'm hungry." You know what they did? Remember that? The cops took him to Burger King and bought him a hamburger and then took him to jail. Fact check me, please. Fact check me.
No, I believe it. That's
what we see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So our guy, dies on the sidewalk. He didn't kill anybody. Maybe he passed a $20 bill or didn't pass a fake $20 bill. We don't know. But we do know that Dylan Roof murdered 9 Black people in church doing Bible study who had nothing to do with anything he was for or against. He didn't even know them. He just shot them and killed them in cold blood. And he goes to Burger King. He's still alive today. That, and they gently put him in the car. There's just something wrong with that picture,
Well, see, this is the perspective I've been coming to lately and fully agreeing with that because it's fucked through and through, without a doubt. But I feel like we spend so much time like going back and forth as Americans over ideology and who's in the right and who's in the wrong and which side is right, which narrative is correct and which one's wrong. When really, when it comes down to it, it boils down to public safety and rules. We talk about Black versus white, but we never talk about systems in place. That's one thing that Black Lives Matter, when I joined, was really good with. It was pretty, I can't even remember most of it because it got shut down so much, but it was pretty in depth of like, these are the very specific chunks of things that we want. And then over time, it just got smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's like, the more they have us focusing on fighting each other, the less they have us thinking in specifics. Like, for example, I know someone who I might hopefully be talking with soon on the podcast who is a part of a LARPing community. And right now with the Pride festivals, there is pedophilia and kink and fetishism out the ass, and it's really disturbing to see. But they were talking about their Pride events that they were having with their LARPing community and the public safety in the Pride events, and not even having any politics brought into the conversation at all. They're like, yeah, these are our rules for kids. These are our rules for unattended minors. If you happen to be near a kid that isn't yours, you're booted the hell out and you'll probably have the cops called on you. We have X, Y, and Z protective measures, and just blotted out the whole list. Why? Because they're not boggled down with all this left versus right nonsense. They're just like, we want to dress up, come out with our swords and our knight armor, have some fun, make sure it's safe for everybody. And because they don't have that vicious political element to it, they're just thinking public safety. And I think that's something we really get lost with as Americans is it's just like, who do I hate? Who do I support? Who do I love? And it's just like, what rules are in place that would have prevented that from happening to begin with? And I just think that's where a large focus needs to be, because it's like, the George Floyd example, you and I could disagree all day back and forth with our various points, but what really matters at the end of the day? Proper policing, proper rules put in place, proper checks and balances. But it's like, so long as they have Americans thinking right versus left, white versus black, conservative versus liberal, no one's thinking about the rules. No one's even thinking about how these organizations are structured or how they operate. It's like with Antifa. People think Antifa, they think one thing. Like you said with Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of Black Lives Matter.
Right.
I watched Antifa fraction in lifetime to where they're just like, you're racist. No, you're racist. Well, I'm less racist than you. And they just all took their flag and they just went to separate parts of the city. And it was like,
Exactly.
because they weren't focused on the rules.
Now, here's another thing I find interesting is okay. So lately, some of these politicians who are always on TV, judges and congresswomen and etc., are turning the U.S. flag upside down. Seen that, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so there was supposed to be one occasion upon which you turn the U.S. flag upside down. That's if you're in danger. You're signaling, I need help. Okay? So they're turning it upside down, not because they need help, but because they disagree with some policy in our government, namely Joe Biden. I don't care whether you like Joe Biden or whether you like Trump. Okay? You are disrespecting the flag if you're using it for that purpose, because that was meant to signal SOS. We're in trouble. We need help here. All right. And now you watered down the meaning of that. All right. So these same people who have disrespected the flag for turning it upside down when that's not the meaning that they're trying to convey. These are the same people who went along condemning Colin Kaepernick for kneeling during the Star Spangled Banner.
Fair point.
And allowing the President of the United States to call him and anybody who kneeled during the Star Spangled Banner sons of bitches.
That one always baffled me because he got that from a Marine. I always try to tell that to people. I'm like, he got that from a soldier who felt disrespected by what he did initially and said, "Hey, let me show you something that we do when we're out in the field to show respect when we're feeling something." And yeah, no, not to cut you off, but that one just was always so baffling to me. But
he
yeah,
was not disrespecting the military by doing that. He was not disrespecting the flag by doing that. He was saying, here on the field, on the football field, I'm playing with other black teammates and my white teammates, and we all are equal. We're treated equally on this football field. But when I leave the stadium, then I'm just another black guy driving down the street getting pulled over because I drive an expensive car. I've been there. I've been pulled over for driving an expensive car. Okay, many times. That's what he's saying. When I say the Pledge of Allegiance, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation, indivisible. It's bullshit. We are not one nation, indivisible. We are a very divided nation. So I'm saying that, and then I'm holding my hand over my heart, looking at my flag, saying, "With liberty and justice for all." That's a crock of bullshit. It's not for all. It's not for you being gay. It's not for me being black. It's not for women, being second class to men. All right. So we need to fix that, and we can fix it. But the man was not disrespecting the flag, but now he's being accused of disrespecting the flag by kneeling. All right. Mm-hmm. But yet these same politicians who call him a son of a bitch and call him disrespecting the flag are the same ones who are turning the flag upside down because they don't like something. There's a lot of hypocrisy going on there.
There's a lot of hypocrisy, but there's also the element of, I do think that even politicians are human. I even feel like Because I don't see it as like one SOS being right over another. I just see it as two different SOSs. Because at the end of the day, I just feel like we all need help. This actually brings me into something I wanted to talk to you about, because I think this brings up a really cool point. So, like I was saying, I feel like different people have their different SOSs. We all know the ship is sinking. We're just pointing to different holes, essentially, is kind of how I see it. So this happened this week, and I really wanted to share this with you. That was really cool because I have a neighbor next door, and she's older, and she's had a lot of life. She's seen some shit. She was an activist back in the day. She was a part of the Flower Power movement. She's been all over the country. I've kind of become more MAGA, I guess, more right leaning as time's gone on, and she's a never Trumper. But she's older, and I'm not gonna like stop talking to someone because of their politics. So like we clash well. Whereas people in my generation, I could say something and then they'll just walk the other direction. She's like, hell no, we're gonna talk about it. If I think it's fucked up, I'm gonna address it, and we're gonna hug by the end of it and smoke a bowl together. I love this woman to death. But we got really heated 2 days ago because I'm pursuing a story right now. I live close to a high school here that they have a litter box in the bathroom that children are shitting in, and apparently have been for the last 2 or 3 years, and they've been punishing students for speaking out against it. And now I feel comfortable enough saying it with you because I've heard it from multiple different sources. I'm hoping it pans out. I'm also kind of hoping it's a lie because it's crazy, but it seems to be more and more true as time goes on. But when she hears that kind of thing, back in the 80s and 90s, what do you hear about gay people? If you let them get married, they're going to start fucking animals, and they'll start diddling your kids, and they're going to bring it into the schools, and they're going to bring it into the church. Back then, that was a fallacy. Now it's a reality. Because again, it's like these people's worst fears are coming true, and I really believe that to be an accelerationist plot. So I'm sitting here as a gay man trying to tell her, like, no, this shit's got out of control. Kids are identifying as animals. There's pedophilia in my community. There's all sorts of craziness going on. And we got really heated back and forth, and it was like she wasn't believing me. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I know this is a freaking fact. And she's on the Never Trump train to the point where Trump gets brought up a lot. So it keeps going back to Trump, back to Trump, back to Trump. And it was one of the few times I ever had to walk away from her. And I was just like, I need to go home, settle down. Let's come back to this tomorrow morning, because we always see each other in the mornings and we always smoke a bowl together. So I go back in, I send her an apology text, and it happened to be the same day or maybe the day after a new Tom McDonald song drops called Me Versus You, which you should absolutely listen to. It's phenomenal. And then by the next day, she kind of walk up to each other sheepishly, and I'm like, hey. And she's like, hey. She's like, you get my text? Because she texted me that morning being like, hey, I'm not mad at you. Like, still value you as a neighbor. And I said the same. And we get together and we start smoking. She's like, so and so up the road. And I'm just like, no. She's like, it's the house where the kids are always playing basketball outside and blowing bubbles. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Well, she's in charge of the school district, or she's one of the school board people or whatever. She's somewhere involved in that process. I'm not sure what she is specifically, but she apparently knows a lot of the teachers and the staff and the parents of the children that go there. She's like, I started talking to her about what you're talking about, and I'm hoping it's not true, but if it's true, that's child abuse. That's public humiliation of a child. And we can't have that. So what she did was she offered me an olive branch and went to talk to this woman, and she got this woman to launch an investigation into this damn litter box. Less than 24 hours before, she was just like, this isn't real. This is a far right conspiracy. And then she's just like, you're my neighbor and I love you, and I see that you're a gay man and you feel like your community's in shambles. I did something for you. That meant the world. And if we can get it going through and we can blow it up, it might mean the world for the kids who are having to deal with this kind of crap.
So did she verify that there was a litter box in the restroom or whatever?
It's still ongoing. This is still an ongoing project, and a big problem is too that school just let out for summer, but got enough connections and I know enough people to where I think things are happening pretty fast, and hopefully here within the next few weeks I should know something for sure. So it could turn out to be a big nothing burger. I'll put out a disclaimer if that happens to be the case, but I talked to a couple different people who have no contact with each other across age ranges, and anytime I asked about it, they're like, it's real, and it's been there for a minute. And to just normal everyday people who don't tune into politics, they think it's made up or they think it's lunacy, but it's something we really have to deal with. I've seen pedophiles infiltrate my community and try to justify their pedophilic behavior through rhetoric and try to disguise themselves as minor attracted persons. It's like, but it gets clouded in the, well, these are things they used to say. So if we say these things now and address it, then that just means we're going back to the 80s or the 60s or the 70s. And it's just like, no, it just means we're in an unfortunate situation where the far right was right. Now, whether that was by design or accident, I don't know if that really matters so much as how do we clean it up? Because until it gets cleaned up, we're just going more and more towards, it's not even going to be a race war. You can't just have a clean race war or a civil war or a holy war. It's just going to be all different wars happening at once and people just trying to survive. And that's not going to be good for anybody.
I hear you. Well, let's definitely do a part 2 here.
Yes, absolutely.
I really enjoyed this. I really appreciate you having me on. I definitely want to come back.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. And I'm sorry that we went a little over the time here, but it really means the world that you were able to speak with me. And, you know, again, for anybody out there, if you're not familiar with Daryl's work, go out there, get yourself educated, check out some interviews. I'll have some links in the description, also to some of his music. And man, just God bless you, and I appreciate everything you've been doing, man.
And thank you. And I look forward to getting some links for you from you, so I can get educated too.
With all due respect, I don't have pity for you black niggas. That's the way I feel. Screaming Black Lives Matter, all the black guys rather be deadbeats than pay your bills. Yelling nigga this and nigga that. Call everybody nigga and get a nigga mad. As soon as I say nigga, then everyone react and wanna swing at me and call me racist cause I ain't black. Well, pound that then. Talking about slavery like you was around back then. Like you was picking cotton off the fucking ground back then. Like you was on the plantation getting down back then. Alright, look. I see a black man aiming his gun, but I'd rather see a black man claiming his son. And I don't mean just for one day and you done. I mean, you still trapped in a rut. And I work my ass off and pay my taxes for what? So you can keep living off free government assistance, food stamps for your children, but you still tryna sell them for some weed and some liquor or a fucking babysitter while you party on the road cause you ain't got no fucking goals? You already late. You motherfuckers need to get your damn priorities straight. Wait, it's like you're proud to be fake, but you lazy as fuck. And you rather sell drugs and get a job and be straight. And then you turn around and complain about the poverty rate. Fuck out of my face. You can't escape problems. You can pray for some change but can't break a dollar. Got nobody else to blame, so you blame Donald. They fucked the world with a Make America Great condom. My voice been back. I'm not racist. My sister's boyfriend's black. I'm not racist. My sister-in-law's baby cousin Tracy got a brother and his girlfriend's black. My head's in the cloud. Heard there's not enough jobs for all the men in your house. Maybe we should build a wall to keep the Mexicans out. Or maybe we should send them all to the ghetto for now. I'm not racist. And I never lied, but I think there's a disconnect between your culture and mine. I worship the Einsteins, studied the Steve Jobs, but you ride Tupac's dick like he was a fucking god, oh my god. And all you care about is rapping and stunting and being ratchet, and that's the nigga within you. Music rot in your brain and slowly start to convince you. Then you let your kids listen and then the cycle continues. Blame it all on the menu, blame it on those drinks, blame it on everybody except for your own race. Blame it on white privileges, blame it on white kids, and just blame it on white citizens. Aim at the vice president. Bunch of class clowns. Niggas kneeling on the field, that's a flag down. How dare you try to make demands for this money? You gon' show us some respect, you gon' stand for this country, nigga. I'm not racist. I'm just prepared for this type of war. I heard Eminem's rap at the awards. Who's he fighting for? Y'all can take that motherfucker too, he ain't white no more. It's like you wanna be so famous. You'll do anything for attention and a little payment. I can't take you nowhere without people pointing fingers. Pants hanging off your ass, you ain't got no home training. Put your fucking pants up, nigga. Put that suit back on, take that do-rag off. Take that gold out your mouth, quit the pitiful stuff. And then maybe police and stop killing you fucks. Yo, what the fuck? I'm not racist. It's like we're living in the same building but split into 2 floors. I'm not racist. But there's 2 sides to every story, I wish that I knew yours. I wish that I knew yours. I'm not racist. I swear. With all disrespect, I don't really like you white motherfuckers. That's just where I'm at. Screaming all lives matter is a protest to my protest. What kind of shit is that? And that's one war you'll never win. The power in the word nigga is a different sin. We shouldn't say it, but we do, and that's just what it is. But that don't mean that you can say it just cause you got nigga friends. Nigga. That word was originated for you to keep us under. And when we use it, we know that's just how we greet each other. And when you use it, we know there's a double meaning under. And even if I wasn't picking cotton physically, that don't mean I'm not infected by the history. My grandmama was a slave, that shit gets to me, and you ain't got no motherfucking sympathy, you pussy nigga. I'm sorry, you can never feel my life. Tryna have faith, but I never feel alright. It's hard to elevate when this country's ran by whites, judging me by my skin color and my blackness. Tryna find a job, but ain't nobody call me back yet. Now I gotta sell drugs and put food in my cabinet. You crackers ain't slick, this is all a part of your tactics. Don't talk about no motherfucking taxes when I ain't making no dough. You think you know everything, but you don't. You wanna copy our slang and everything that we know. Try to steal black culture and make it your own. Whoa. Fuck, I'm exhausted. I can't even drive without the cops trying to start shit. I'm tired of this systematic racism bullshit. All you do is false shit, this the shit that I'm false with. And you don't know shit about my people, that's what bothers you. You don't know about no fried chicken or no barbecue. You don't know about the two-step or no loose change. You don't know about no 2 chains or no Kool-Aid. You don't know. And even though Barack was half as black, you hated President Obama, I know that's a fact. You couldn't wait to get him out and put a cracker back. And then you gave us Donald Trump and I was payback for that. I'm not racist. I never lied, but I noticed a disconnect between your culture and mine. Yeah, I praised Tupac like he was a fucking god. He was fighting for his life way before he fucking died. Nigga, die, nigga. And all you care about is money and power and being ugly, and that's the cracker within you. Hatred all in your brain and slowly start to convince you. Then you teach it to your children until the cycle continue. Blame it on Puerto Rico, blame it on OJ, blame it on everybody except for your own race. Blame it on black niggas and blame it on black citizens. Aim at the black businesses. I ain't saying I'm innocent, but I might be any day now. Treating everybody how you want in any way how. I swear North Korea about to bomb us any day now. And now I'm ducking every time I hear a fucking plane now. Shit. You know I make a lot of sense, but you just can't admit it. When Eminem went against Trump, that was the illest. Cause even though he's white, he let us know he's standing with us. I'm not racist, but I cry a lot. You don't know what it's like to be in a frying pot. You don't know what it's like to mind your business and get stopped by the cops. And I know if you about to die or not. You worry about your life, so you take mine. I love you, but I fucking hate you at the same time. I wish we could trade shoes or we could change lives so we can understand each other more, but that'll take time. I'm not racist. It's like we living in the same building but split into both sides. I'm not racist. But there's 2 sides to every story, and now you know mine. Can't erase the scars with a bandage. I'm hoping maybe we can come to an understanding. Agree to disagree, we can have an understanding. I'm not racist.